Aaliyah was only 9 years old, but she already carried a big dream in her little heart. While most of the children her age loved cartoons, dolls, or games, Aaliyah loved something different. She loved karate. It started when her father, Marcus, often watched old martial arts movies on the weekends. At first, she would sit quietly next to him, wondering why people in white uniforms moved around with so much focus. But the more she watched, the more she became fascinated. The idea that someone small could be strong, someone quiet could be powerful, touched her deeply. Aaliyah was a curious child. She would stand in front of the mirror in her room, copying the kicks and punches she saw on television. Sometimes she would giggle at her reflection when she lost her balance, but other times she would keep practicing until she could hold a stance just like the people in the movie. Her father noticed her determination and told her mother, "Jasmine, I think our little girl has the spirit of a fighter. We should let her try." Jasmine smiled warmly. She had always encouraged Aaliyah to follow her passions, and she agreed that karate might be good for her. One evening at dinner, Marcus leaned over the table and said, "Aaliyah, how would you like to join a real karate class?" Her eyes widened. She dropped the spoon in her hand and looked at her parents in disbelief. "Really? You mean, for real?" she asked, her voice filled with excitement. Jasmine nodded. "Yes, sweetheart. We think you're ready." Aaliyah's heart raced. She felt as if her biggest dream had suddenly turned into reality. The following Saturday, Aaliyah and her parents visited a small karate school in their town. The dojo smelled faintly of wood and clean mats. The walls were decorated with pictures of students in uniform, their belts tied proudly around their waists. The sound of children practicing echoed in the room, punches hitting pads, feet striking the air, voices shouting "Kie" with energy. Aaliyah froze for a moment at the entrance. She felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Her father gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "Don't be scared, princess. Everyone starts as a beginner. You'll do great." She nodded and took a deep breath. The instructor, Mr. Ramirez, walked over to greet them. He was a tall man with kind eyes, and his presence filled the room with calm authority. "Welcome. You must be Aaliyah," he said warmly. She nodded shyly. "We're happy to have you here. Remember, karate is not about being the strongest in the room. It's about respect, discipline, and believing in yourself." That first day, Mr. Ramirez introduced Aaliyah to the class. "Everyone, this is Aaliyah. She is starting her journey today." The students bowed politely, but not all of them were welcoming. Aaliyah noticed a few older kids in the back exchanging whispers. 2 boys and 1 girl giggled, pointing at her braids and small frame. She tried to ignore them, but the sound of their laughter sank into her heart. "Why is she even here? She's so small," one boy whispered loudly enough for her to hear. Another added, "She won't last a week." Their words stung. Aaliyah looked down at her new uniform, which her mother had carefully folded and pressed the night before. For a moment, her excitement dimmed. Still, she stepped onto the mat with determination. Mr. Ramirez began the warm-up exercises, stretching, jumping, practicing basic stances. Aaliyah gave her best effort, copying every movement. She stumbled a few times, but she never stopped trying. Meanwhile, the bullies at the back snickered each time she slipped. Their laughter grew louder whenever she made a mistake, but Mr. Ramirez reminded everyone, in karate, there are no mistakes, only lessons. After the warm-up, the class practiced basic punches. Mr. Ramirez demonstrated carefully, breaking the motion into steps. Aaliyah followed, her fists trembling at first but growing steadier with each repetition. She whispered to herself, "I can do this." Her father watched from the side, his face glowing with pride. When it was time to practice kicks, Aaliyah struggled to lift her leg as high as the older kids. One of the bullies smirked and whispered, she kicks like a baby. His friend laughed, and Aaliyah's cheeks burned. She wanted to cry, but she remembered her father's words, "Don't be scared. You'll do great." She kept going, even when her legs felt heavy. At the end of class, Mr. Ramirez gathered everyone in a circle. "Remember," he said, "karate is not just about fighting. It is about becoming the best version of yourself. We vow to show respect for ourselves, for each other, and for the journey ahead." Aaliyah bowed deeply, holding back her tears. She didn't want her parents to see her sadness. On the way home, Marcus noticed her silence. "What's wrong, princess?" he asked gently. She hesitated, then whispered, "Some of the kids laughed at me." Jasmine turned in her seat and looked at her daughter. "People laugh when they don't understand. But you know what? You are brave. You walked into that dojo and tried your best. That's what matters." Marcus nodded. Every master started as a beginner. Even the strongest fighter was once laughed at. What matters is that you don't give up. That night, Aaliyah stood in front of her mirror again, practicing the same punches and kicks she had learned. This time, she didn't imagine the bullies laughing. She imagined herself standing tall, strong, and confident. She whispered softly, "I can do this." Over the next week, Aaliyah returned to class again and again. Each time, the bullies found something new to tease her about: her uniform, her slow punches, her quiet voice. But each time, Aaliyah fought the urge to cry and chose to practice harder instead. She stayed late after class, asking Mr. Ramirez questions, repeating her moves until she felt stronger. Her parents noticed the change at home too. Instead of feeling sad, she spent her evenings practicing. The living room became her training space. Her mother clapped for her after every good kick, and her father even held pillows as targets. Aaliyah laughed as she kicked, punched, and shouted "Kie!" with growing confidence. Though the bullies still whispered, something inside her was changing. She was learning that courage was not about never being afraid. Courage was about standing up even when people doubted her. And little by little, she began to believe in herself. Aaliyah didn't know it yet, but the day would come soon when those same kids who laughed at her would stand face to face with her on the mat. And in less than 60 seconds, everything would change. Aaliyah woke up early the next Saturday morning, staring at her uniform hanging neatly on the chair. She had ironed it herself this time, carefully smoothing every wrinkle. She wanted to look ready, even if she didn't feel so brave inside. Her stomach felt heavy, like butterflies had filled it overnight. She remembered the whispers, the laughter, the smirks from the last class. For a moment, she thought about pretending to be sick just to avoid going back. Her mother knocked softly on the door and stepped in with a smile. "Good morning, champion," she said. "Are you excited for class?" Aaliyah forced a smile and nodded. Inside, she wanted to say, "I'm scared they'll laugh again." But she didn't want to worry her mother. At breakfast, her father noticed the way she picked at her food instead of eating. He leaned closer and asked, "What's wrong, princess? You usually eat 2 pancakes before I even sit down." She hesitated, then whispered, "What if they laugh at me again today?" Marcus put down his fork and looked at her with serious eyes. "They might," he admitted. "But remember what I told you. You're not here for them. You're here for you. Every time they laugh, it's a chance to show yourself that you won't stop." Aaliyah thought about his words as they drove to the dojo. She wished she could be as confident as her father believed she was. The truth was, she felt small, and the other kids seemed so much stronger. But she also remembered how proud he looked when she practiced at home. Maybe, she thought, if I keep trying, one day I'll surprise them. When she entered the dojo, the bullies were already there. The 2 boys were practicing loud kicks, showing off how high they could lift their legs. The older girl stood with them, laughing and pointing toward Aaliyah when she walked in. "Here comes the baby ninja," one boy whispered, loud enough for her to hear. His friend chuckled and added, "Let's see how many times she falls today." Aaliyah's cheeks grew hot. She wanted to run outside, but instead she tied her belt tighter and bowed to Mr. Ramirez. The instructor began the warm ups. Everyone stretched, jogged in place, and practiced stances. Aaliyah focused hard on copying every move exactly as shown. She stumbled once during a jump, and sure enough, the giggles came from the back. Her ears burned, but she kept moving. After warm ups, the class split into pairs to practice blocking and counter moves. Mr. Ramirez paired Aaliyah with the older girl who had laughed at her earlier. The girl smirked. "This will be easy," she muttered. They began practicing slow punches and blocks, but the girl kept making her moves extra fast, trying to make Aaliyah look clumsy. Each time Aaliyah missed, the girl snickered. "Focus," Mr. Ramirez reminded kindly. "Don't let speed fool you. Technique is more important." Aaliyah nodded, taking a deep breath. She slowed down her mind and watched more carefully. The next time the girl threw a punch, Aaliyah moved her arm exactly as she had practiced and blocked it cleanly. For the first time, she felt a spark of pride. Still, by the end of class, the bullies found something to whisper about. "She's too slow," one boy said. "She'll never keep up." Aaliyah heard them again, and it hurt. On the ride home, she sat quietly in the back seat, staring out the window. Her father glanced at her reflection in the mirror. "Talk to me," he said gently. Aaliyah sighed. "They keep laughing, Dad. No matter how hard I try, they don't stop. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm not strong enough." Marcus pulled the car over for a moment. He turned to face her completely. "Listen to me, Aaliyah. Strength doesn't come from winning every time. Strength comes from not quitting when things are hard. Do you think those kids are better because they laugh? No. They laugh because they're afraid. Afraid of someone like you, who doesn't quit." His voice softened. "Do you want to quit?" Aaliyah shook her head slowly. "No," she whispered. "Good," Marcus said firmly. "Then you're already stronger than them." Those words stuck with her all week. At school, when she saw kids running faster or playing sports better, she remembered her father's voice. Strength comes from not quitting. At home, she practiced extra hard, punching the air with focus, kicking higher than before, shouting "Kie," so loud the neighbors could hear. Jasmine would clap from the kitchen, and Marcus would sometimes join her, showing her how to keep her balance. The next karate class felt a little different. Aaliyah still felt nervous, but she walked onto the mat with more determination. She didn't want to prove the bullies wrong, she wanted to prove herself right. During drills, Mr. Ramirez taught a new move, the front kick combined with a block. It looked complicated, and many of the kids struggled at first. The bullies laughed when Aaliyah's kick landed lower than expected. "She can't even kick waist high," one boy whispered. Aaliyah almost let it break her focus, but then she remembered her practice at home. She inhaled deeply, steadied her balance, and tried again. This time, her kick reached a little higher. Then higher still. Mr. Ramirez noticed her effort. "Good work, Aaliyah. That's the spirit. Improvement happens step by step." His encouragement gave her a boost of confidence. Still, the bullies didn't stop. At water break, they circled near her and mocked her punches. "You punch like a feather," one teased. "Yeah," said another, pretending to fall slowly, "Look, she knocked me out." They burst out laughing. Aaliyah clenched her fists, but not in anger, in determination. She remembered her father's words, "They laugh because they're afraid." By the end of that class, she felt exhausted but proud that she hadn't given up. She bowed to her instructor with a stronger voice. On the way home, she finally smiled again. At dinner, she told her parents, "They still laughed at me today. But guess what? I didn't stop. I kept going, and I did the kick better than last time." Her parents exchanged a proud glance. Jasmine said softly, "That's our girl. Every time you keep going, you grow stronger." That night, as she practiced one more time in front of the mirror, she whispered, "I'm not weak. I'm learning." She could still hear the bullies' laughter in her head, but now it didn't sound as loud. It was slowly being replaced by another sound, her own voice, firm and steady, telling her not to give up. Aaliyah didn't realize it yet, but her patience and courage were building something powerful inside her. The bullies might still have their laughter, but she now had something they didn't, the heart of a fighter who refused to quit. Aaliyah had been practicing karate for a few weeks now. Every day felt like a new test of her patience and courage. She was still the youngest in the class, and still the smallest, but something inside her was starting to change. Each time she stepped on the mat, she felt a little braver. Each time she bowed to her instructor, she felt a little stronger. But the bullies never seemed to get tired of teasing her. They found new ways to laugh at her every class. When she slipped, they whispered, "Clumsy." When her kick was too low, they muttered, "Baby kick." Even when she did well, they rolled their eyes and pretended it didn't count. Aaliyah tried to ignore them, but deep down, she wished they would just leave her alone. One Saturday morning, the dojo was buzzing with extra energy. Mr. Ramirez had announced that they would be practicing sparring. Sparring was when students faced each other in mock matches, using controlled movements to test their skills. For Aaliyah, this was both exciting and terrifying. She had practiced kicks and blocks at home, but she had never faced another student in a real match. "Remember," Mr. Ramirez said as the class gathered around, "sparring is not about winning or losing. It's about learning. You respect your opponent, you use control, and you always bow before and after. Do you understand?" "Yes, Sensei," the students shouted in unison. Aaliyah's heart pounded. She looked at the other students, most of them taller and older. She wondered who she would be paired with. The bullies were standing together, smirking as usual. One of the boys nudged the other and whispered something. The girl laughed. Aaliyah could tell by their eyes that they were planning something. When sparring began, pairs were called to the mat. One by one, students faced each other. Some matches were fast and energetic, while others were cautious and slow. The parents sitting at the back clapped politely after each round. Finally, one of the bullies raised his hand. "Sensei, can we spar with Aaliyah?" he asked, pretending to sound polite. His friend quickly added, "Yeah, we want to help her practice." The older girl giggled. Mr. Ramirez studied their faces. He was no fool. He could see the mischief in their eyes. But he also believed in teaching lessons through action. He looked at Aaliyah, who was standing nervously by the side. "Aaliyah, would you like to spar today?" Aaliyah froze. Her heart felt like it might leap out of her chest. She wanted to say no, to hide behind her parents, to avoid the embarrassment she feared was coming. But then she remembered her father's words, "Strength comes from not quitting." Slowly, she nodded. "Yes, Sensei," she said, her voice trembling but clear. "Good," Mr. Ramirez replied with a small smile. "Then let's give her the chance." The bullies looked thrilled, but Aaliyah felt her legs shake as she stepped onto the mat. She bowed to her instructor, then to her opponent. The boy in front of her smirked. "This will be quick," he whispered. "Begin," Mr. Ramirez commanded. The boy charged forward recklessly, throwing a sloppy punch. Aaliyah's mind raced. For a second, she panicked, but then she remembered the block she had practiced at home 100 times. She raised her arm and deflected the punch. The boy stumbled slightly, surprised. The class gasped softly. Encouraged, Aaliyah tried a small counter move, a front kick just like she had practiced. Her foot tapped the boy's side, not hard, but controlled. Mr. Ramirez clapped once. Point for Aaliyah. The boy's smirk faded. He came at her again, faster this time, but his movements were wild. Aaliyah focused, her heart beating fast but her mind clear. She dodged to the side, just as she had practiced with her father in the living room. She threw another kick, sharper this time. The boy stopped in his tracks, realizing she wasn't as weak as he thought. The class was silent, watching closely. Even the parents in the back leaned forward. The boy tried one more time, but Aaliyah blocked his move and delivered a quick, precise punch toward his chest guard. She pulled back just in time, showing control. Mr. Ramirez raised his hand. Match over. Well done, both of you. The boy stepped back, his face red with embarrassment. He bowed stiffly, avoiding eye contact. Before Aaliyah could catch her breath, the second bully stepped forward. I want to try too, he said. His tone wasn't friendly, it was challenging. Mr. Ramirez looked at Aaliyah. Do you want to continue? She hesitated, then nodded. The second boy rushed at her, trying to scare her with loud shouts. But Aaliyah had grown steadier. She moved carefully, blocking his punches and waiting for the right moment. When he left his guard open, she tapped him cleanly with a kick. Point for Aaliyah, Mr. Ramirez called again. This time, the room erupted with whispers. The students were shocked, the parents were impressed, and even the bullies looked uncertain. The girl bully crossed her arms. Let me fight her, she said, stepping forward. Aaliyah swallowed hard. She was tired, but she refused to back down. She bowed once more, then raised her guard. The girl attacked quickly, her moves sharper than the boys. For the first few seconds, Aaliyah struggled to keep up. She blocked one punch, missed another, and stumbled back slightly. The bullies smirked, thinking they finally had their victory. But then Aaliyah remembered her training again. She steadied her stance, focused on the girl's shoulders, and waited. When the girl moved in too fast, Aaliyah sidestepped and used a clean counter move. Her kick tapped the girl's side, just as controlled as before. Mr. Ramirez's voice rang out. Point for Aaliyah. The dojo was completely silent for a moment. Then, slowly, the silence turned into clapping. Parents clapped. Some students clapped. Even a few kids who had never spoken to Aaliyah before cheered. Aaliyah stood frozen, breathing hard, her eyes wide. She couldn't believe what had just happened. She had faced all three bullies, and she had not only survived, she had won. The bullies looked stunned. Their smirks were gone. Their laughter had vanished. They bowed reluctantly, avoiding her eyes. Mr. Ramirez stepped forward. Do you see what happens when you believe in yourself? He asked the whole class. Aaliyah showed courage, respect, and control. That is what karate is truly about. Aaliyah bowed, her heart swelling with pride. For the first time since she joined the class, she felt truly seen, not as the small girl to be laughed at, but as a student with strength and discipline. That night, when her family drove home, Aaliyah's smile never faded. She replayed the match over and over in her head, each block, each kick, each bow. She knew this was just the beginning. The next week, the dojo felt different to Aaliyah. She walked in with her uniform neat and her belt tied tightly around her waist. She still felt nervous, but it was no longer the kind of nervousness that made her want to hide. It was the kind that made her want to try harder. She remembered how she had sparred the bullies before and how the class had clapped for her. That memory gave her courage. But the bullies hadn't forgotten either. They had been embarrassed, and they didn't like it. As Aaliyah stretched on the mat, she heard one of the boys whisper, "She just got lucky last time." The girl added, "Yeah, if we really fought her, she wouldn't stand a chance. They laughed quietly, but Aaliyah didn't flinch. She tightened her fists and whispered to herself, "I'll prove it wasn't luck." That Saturday, Mr. Ramirez announced something new. "Today," he said, "we will have timed sparring matches. Each round will last 60 seconds. Your goal is not just to score points, but to show control, speed, and focus." The students cheered with excitement. Aaliyah felt her chest tighten. 60 seconds sounded short, but she knew it would feel long when standing on the mat. When it was time to begin, pairs were called one after another. Students moved fast, trying their best to impress the instructor. Parents clapped from the back of the room, enjoying the energy. Then, almost as if it had been planned, one of the bullies raised his hand. "Sensei," he said, pretending to be respectful, "can Aaliyah spar again? I think she should get more practice." The other two quickly chimed in. "Yes, let us go against her," the girl said. "We'll take turns. It'll be fun." The class murmured in interest. Everyone remembered the last time. Some looked at Aaliyah with pity, thinking it might be too much for her. Others looked curious, wondering if she could surprise them again. Mr. Ramirez studied the bullies, then glanced at Aaliyah. "Do you want to spar?" he asked her directly. Aaliyah's heart raced. She could have said no. No one would have blamed her. But deep inside, she felt something strong pushing her forward. She thought about all the nights she practiced in front of her mirror, all the times her father told her not to quit, all the tears she had hidden when the bullies laughed. This was her chance. She nodded firmly. "Yes, Sensei." The room grew quiet. Even the parents leaned forward in their seats. The first boy stepped onto the mat. He smirked at her as they bowed. "This time, you won't be so lucky," he whispered. "Begin." Mr. Ramirez commanded. The boy lunged forward immediately, but Aaliyah was ready. She blocked his punch with a swift move and countered with a clean front kick to his chest guard. He stumbled back, shocked. Before he could recover, she pivoted and delivered another sharp kick, controlled but fast. The boy froze, realizing he was outmatched. "Point for Aaliyah," Mr. Ramirez called. The boy scowled but bowed. His turn had ended almost before it began. The class murmured in surprise. Without wasting time, the second boy stepped forward. His face was red with determination. "I'll take her down," he muttered. They bowed, and the match began. This boy tried a different tactic. He circled her, throwing quick jabs to test her. But Aaliyah had been practicing at home with her father, learning not just to attack but to wait. She stayed calm, watching his movements carefully. When he finally rushed in, leaving his side unguarded, she struck. A fast block, a quick punch, and then a precise kick. Tap, 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 3 moves in less than 10 seconds. The boy stumbled back, his eyes wide. Mr. Ramirez raised his hand. "Match over. Point for Aaliyah." Now the dojo was buzzing. Students whispered excitedly. Parents clapped louder. Some of the kids who had once ignored Aaliyah looked at her with admiration. Only the girl was left. She stepped onto the mat, her face tense. She had laughed the loudest before, but now she looked serious. They bowed, and Mr. Ramirez gave the command. The girl charged forward with a loud shout, her moves sharp and fast. For a moment, it seemed like Aaliyah might struggle. But she steadied her breath, remembered her training, and blocked every strike. The girl grew frustrated and left her guard open. In that instant, Aaliyah acted. She slipped to the side, dodged the next strike, and countered with a swift kick that made the girl stumble. Before the girl could recover, Aaliyah delivered one more clean strike, controlled, precise, and undeniable. "Point for Aaliyah," Mr. Ramirez announced. The match had lasted barely 20 seconds. The entire dojo erupted in applause. Parents stood and clapped. Some students cheered loudly. Even those who had doubted her couldn't deny what they had just seen. Aaliyah stood in the center of the mat, her chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. She looked at the three bullies, who now stood on the side with their heads lowered. They had been defeated, each one, in under a minute altogether. Mr. Ramirez stepped forward. "Do you see this?" he asked the class. "Strength does not come from mocking others. Strength comes from focus, respect, and hard work. Aaliyah has shown all three today." The applause grew louder. Aaliyah bowed deeply, her eyes shining with pride. Her parents were beaming from the back. Marcus whispered to Jasmine, "That's my girl." Jasmine wiped a tear from her eye, whispering back, "She finally sees what we've always seen." As the clapping faded, the bullies approached Aaliyah quietly. They didn't laugh this time. They didn't smirk. Instead, they bowed respectfully. "Good match," one of them muttered, almost embarrassed. Aaliyah nodded. She didn't gloat. She didn't mock them back. She simply bowed and said, "Thank you." The lesson of the day was clear to everyone. Aaliyah had not only won the sparring matches, she had won respect. And she had done it all in under 60 seconds. That night at home, Aaliyah couldn't stop smiling. She replayed every moment in her mind: the block, the kick, the applause. She had faced her biggest fear and had turned it into her greatest victory. As she lay in bed, she whispered softly to herself, "I'm strong. I can do this." And for the first time since she joined karate, she truly believed it. The dojo felt different after that unforgettable Saturday. Everyone had seen what Aaliyah could do. She had faced the very kids who mocked her the most and handled them with discipline and courage. The whispers that once followed her were no longer about her braids or her size. Now, they were about her strength, her speed, and her confidence. When Aaliyah walked in the following week, the other students didn't laugh or point. Instead, some of them smiled at her. A few even waved shyly. She felt her heart swell. For the first time, she wasn't walking into a room filled with doubt. She was walking into a place where she belonged. The bullies were there too, but something had changed. They didn't snicker when she practiced. They didn't roll their eyes when she stumbled. Instead, they kept quiet, sneaking glances at her as if unsure how to act now. During warm-ups, one of the boys even stood beside her, not to tease, but just to follow along. Mr. Ramirez noticed the change. "This," he told the class, "is what karate is meant to do. Not to tear each other down, but to lift each other up." Aaliyah showed us that respect must always come first. As the weeks went on, Aaliyah grew more confident. Her punches grew sharper, her kicks stronger, and her balance steadier. She no longer worried about laughter, because there was none. Instead, she began to focus only on her training. She stayed after class to ask questions, and sometimes, even the bullies stayed too. One evening, after everyone had finished practicing, the girl bully walked up to Aaliyah. She shuffled awkwardly, clearly uncomfortable. Can you show me how you did that block last time?" she asked softly. Aaliyah blinked in surprise. For a second, she wanted to say no. She remembered all the mean things the girl had said before. But then she remembered something her father always told her: kindness is stronger than anger. So Aaliyah nodded. "Sure," she said simply. She demonstrated the block slowly, explaining each step. The girl listened carefully, copying her movements. "Thanks," she muttered when she finally got it right. Not long after, one of the boys also asked for help with a kick. Aaliyah showed him too, patient and calm. Slowly, the walls between them began to break. They weren't friends yet, but they were no longer enemies. At home, her parents saw the change in her. She walked taller, smiled more, and carried herself with quiet confidence. Marcus often said, "That's the spirit of a true martial artist." Jasmine hugged her often, whispering, "I'm proud of you, my little warrior." School felt different too. When kids teased her for being quiet or small, she didn't shrink anymore. She didn't fight them either. She just smiled and walked away with confidence. Some of her classmates, who had once ignored her, began asking about karate. "Is it fun?" they asked. "Can you really fight?" Aaliyah laughed and said, "It's not about fighting. It's about respect." Word of her victory in the dojo spread quickly. Parents told other parents, students told their friends, and soon, Aaliyah's story became an inspiration for others. A few new kids joined the class after hearing about her. Some of them were shy, nervous, and uncertain just like she had once been. Aaliyah went out of her way to welcome them, remembering how lonely she had felt at first. One little boy, only 7 years old, was so nervous he nearly cried during his first class. Aaliyah knelt beside him and whispered, "Don't worry. I was scared too. But you'll get better every time you try." Her words calmed him, and he managed to finish the class with a smile. Mr. Ramirez saw all of this and felt proud. One evening, he gathered the students and said, "I want you all to look at Aaliyah. She came here nervous, small, and unsure. She faced laughter and doubt. But she never quit. And now, she has not only improved herself but has helped others too. This is the true spirit of karate." The students clapped, and Aaliyah bowed deeply, her cheeks warm with pride. Months passed, and Aaliyah continued to train hard. She earned her next belt, then another. Each step was a reminder of how far she had come. The bullies were no longer bullies, they were just classmates. Sometimes, they even trained side by side, working together without tension. One day, after class ended, the boy who had mocked her the most walked up to her. He looked nervous, scratching his head. "Hey, I just wanted to say sorry. For laughing at you and calling you names." Aaliyah looked at him for a long moment. She could see he meant it. Finally, she smiled. "It's okay," she said. "Just don't do it again to me or anyone else." He nodded quickly. "I won't. I promise." That moment stayed with her. She realized that by staying strong and kind, she had not only defended herself but had changed others too. At home that night, as her family ate dinner, Aaliyah shared the story. Her parents listened with proud smiles. Marcus reached across the table and said, "Do you see what happened? You didn't just prove yourself. You taught others how to respect." Jasmine added, "And that's worth more than any medal or trophy." Aaliyah nodded, her heart full. She thought about the shy boy she had encouraged, the girl she had taught, and even the bullies who had apologized. She realized karate had given her more than strength, it had given her the chance to inspire others. That night, as she stood in front of her mirror, she practiced her stances with calm focus. She no longer saw a small, nervous girl staring back at her. She saw a strong, confident martial artist. She whispered softly, "Respect, courage, kindness." And she knew those 3 words would guide her far beyond the dojo. Because Aaliyah's story was no longer just about being laughed at or even about defeating bullies. It was about becoming someone who believed in herself and helping others believe in themselves too.